Hello, back again. Bit of a follow on from the last episode. Bit of explanation. New tool for the shop and revelations. eBay are using magnifying glasses. In the picture that looked about 4 times the size. I can't complain. It was about $8.50 including delivery to me, even though the leg is a little bit on the piss. Look, it'll do, and it gives me some ideas. I will make a bigger one. I do need some more leverage to pull a big spring up. I tried the mower deck return spring with this and I can just barely budge it. So anyway, it'll go into the toolbox. Good find. Okay, what happened yesterday? I machined the square on the end of the tap driver or tap holder, and at first it looked good. Then I put the calipers on it and it was on the piss. I wasn't getting equal leg length in welding speak, and I couldn't understand why. And I thought of all things, what could have gone wrong? Number one suspect, the dogging screw inside the 5C squaring block. So, did a bit of an investigation. And usually, when you have a 3/16 groove, the end of the screw or the dogging portion is 3/16 wide. It's like a fart in a bottle. It's only about half the width, and the end is not really formed like a good dog-headed screw. So what had happened, the screw had ridden up in the edge of the groove, cockeyed that inside the collet holder, and for my best intentions, and I did try to get it set in really well, it was cocked off quite a bit. So that buggered that. I reset everything, got that to within 0.02 of a millimetre, and away you go. And after all of that farting about, I realised I didn't have to. There's only a one-sided V-block on the tap grinding attachment, which you'll see soon. The centre is dead centre because I've turned that with this held in the lathe chuck and clocked up. So as long as the centre hole is on centre, the tap's up between centres, it'll be accurate. It'll drive off any one of these, and I'll show you once again later. The whole head that clamps around this has a clamping screw onto the shaft that goes back to the cam, so I can set that where I want. So no problems, I'll get on with the job, but I thought you'd like to see the monster of the spring hook. Like I said, magnifying glass. And what happened here, I don't know why they would do that, except maybe it's just an off-the-shelf screw that's cheap to use. Once again, you pay a little bit for what you get, and you get the little bit you bloody paid for. Okay, I'll set us up at the grinder, then bring you back then. Oh, by the way, I hope the audio is a lot better. Once again, I turned off auto gain control. I had already done that and I thought it would stay there, but I may have done a factory reset trying to get some other settings like the white balance back a little bit. So I've put it back on auto gain control. For the next section of this video, I'll be charging up the remote mic and get you some better audio back. So bring you back then. Bye for now. Okay, again, just a bit more on the story before I roll over for lunch. The worms are starting to bite. I've put the holder and the tap together with a bit of green Loctite. Cleaned it both up with this floor check #1 cleaner. Now, floor check is, in the proper sense, a 4-step process, with this being quite an aggressive cleaner and the dye remover being a much less aggressive solvent. So I think this is a Turkosol derivative, or that's what it used to be years and years ago. So I sprayed out the holder and the shank of the tap. A liberal application of Loctite all over the bloody bench and me, so we tidied that up. I'll let that sit over lunch and set it up in the tap grinding attachment, and I'll bring you in for a closer look. I've done that a couple of times before, but there's quite a few new viewers, and I suppose they haven't gone back through the episodes to see anything earlier. It's quite an intriguing old machine. The basic principles are still in use today for grinding taps and countersinks, etc. It's similar to my former leaf grinder attachment. So we'll set that up very shortly. Now I've turned the auto gain control down, so please let me know what the audio's like, and in the next segment I'll be using the remote mic so we can compare the two directly. Okay, I'm off for a bit of a feed and bring you back when the action started. Okay guys, let's delve into the belly of this tap grinding attachment. I'll take the tap out and show you how to load it and how to set it to the attachment. And I won't go back into the operation of the actual attachment itself. I've shown that a couple of times in previous videos. But I think you'll find the way I've got this angle around unique, and my approach to it is very unusual. Okay, no markings on this particular unit, so I don't know whether it's American made, but I would assume it would be. It looks very much like it. Quite a simple affair. You can see the cam here works on an operating lever and runs the mechanism. The tap is held between two centres, and this is the V block that allows you to adjust the tap, and this is the screw that tightens the head onto the operating shaft. So to remove the tap, all I do is back the centre off, and hey presto, it's out of the machine. So that part of it's quite simple. I've got it set up at 45 degrees to the axis of the wheel. So what I'm hoping to do is grind a V groove in here, with the upper part of that being the lead on the last bit of the teeth, and then I'll come in with a cut-off wheel and cut off the cutter again, and then using the edge of the wheel, and so I will dish the end until I'm satisfied that we've got the depth remaining that we want. So I'll put that back in. So it's held firmly between that centre and the centre that's inside. I now lock that, and also there's no slop there. And what I normally do, you'll see here the leading and trailing edge of the flute there is vertical, and I've got the other side vertical because it's a full flute tap. So all I do is move the knob, work the attachment. As it gets closer and closer to the cutting edge, you can see the attachment backs out and then drops in. And I bring it around closer and closer to the cutting edge, it's backing away. That means that it's grinding less and less behind the cutting edge until it drops into the next flute. And with the cross feed on the machine, I'll apply more feed as required. Okay, I swap the glasses and get into grinding mode. And I think I've calculated I need to engage by a little bit over 30 thou, so I'll try and see if that's going to be possible with this setup. Right, we'll make a little bit of noise. Now I think I've got to adjust that setting and timing back a little bit. That's got tap, this is the set. Turn it back just a little. I was a bit afraid that the grinding wheel was just plunging into the flutes too early and it'll be chamfering inside the gullet there, and that's not what we want. Okay, we'll grind it a little bit further, see what happens. Now that's exactly what I wanted to see. And I know we've just gone past 5 on the dial, so I'll go in a thou at a time and see what it looks like. The intermittent grinding is the shaky old fool working the machine. The sparks don't look like high-speed steel, so I'd say that this is a tungsten chrome alloy tap. Carbon steel in layman's terms. Now I've come back on the body far enough to go past all the damaged areas on the tap. I'll try 2 thou. See if that's not a bit too rugged. No, it takes that easily. Now grinding processes are supposed to be the least force required method of machining, but once you've seen the grinding wheel explode you tend to doubt that. Okay, I'm going to go and get a magnifying glass and have a closer look at that. I think my calculations weren't incorrect. I think they were just bloody wrong. Okay, I don't think I've ever got it to focus that good before. Let's have a bit of a closer look. I think if the tap's the only thing that's in the focal range, then it'll focus a lot better. I'm learning a bit about this photography deal. Okay, I've had a close look with my ubiquitous magnifying glass, and I can see that there's more ground at the back than at the front, which is exactly what we want. The relief is angled down slightly, so we'll have clearance behind the cutting edge. I will go in about another thou or 2 to make sure, but I think that that's ground enough now that I can cut the tap off, and I'll use the spin dexter for that, and then I'll disc grind the end, and that should be the finish of it. Bloody marvellous, it's working well. I think this is about as close to a spark out as I'm going to get on this machine, so I'll say that that's good. Now I'll back you out again. You can see what the attachment's like. It is so simple and in my opinion very effective. If you were back in America or in Australia in the 40s or 50s and you needed to recapture taps and get them back onto the floor, this would have been an ideal attachment. And these sort of machines are still applicable for today. For the small shop, taps or any high-speed steel tools, and they're that expensive, you do have to rebuild them. You just don't have a damn choice. So now that part's done, the fun will be in trying to get the tap out of the holder, or I've got to decide whether I leave it there for the moment until I do the next operation. Bring you back when something else is happening. Bye. Okay fellas, we're back to cutting off the cutter again. I've got that Blue Shark 1mm supposedly cut-off wheel in there. I think they measure at 1.27. I found them to be absolutely fabulous for this operation, so cross your fingers I won't have a crash. And let's hope that the remote audio is working a bit better. Bit of noise, a bit of a cut-off. Hello, we're a hour or so not concentric. Now I'm going to very gently start the cut as I'm a little bit out of the groove, or on the slope of the groove, and I don't want the wheel to track crooked, and I don't want to cut off the bit that I've just ground the lead on. So just a little bit at a time until it sets itself up with a nice groove to get the cut-off wheel into. Even with this remote audio gear, I'm still talking to the camcorder. Bloody old drill. So it's actually cutting quite well, but there's got a bit of friction here somewhere, and it's not consistent. It's still catching up on something and I don't know what. I'm glad I'm not using one of the old style non-reinforced cut-off wheels. I think you've got to be a very, very brave tool maker to use one of those. You really know what you're about. That's a little better. Yeah, it looks like it's tracking okay. That's when it's too sharp, you just got to give it enough time to make the cut. Here we are down to the floor of the tap now. Can't see it getting too much longer. I hope not anyway. Just trying my time to remember that it's hot. Otherwise it's going to pick up the colour piece. A bit of patience required in these jobs. And that's something in this muck I don't have a lot of. And there we go. Well, I can't say that took longer than expected because cutting off operations can take time if you're being careful. So once it cools down, I'll bring you in, we'll have a look at the end of the tap and hope I haven't cut off all the work I did before. Okay subscribers, there we are. Now, I've had a bit of luck. The cut-off wheel did vary a little bit, but it still left the lead on the end of the tap, so I'm happy about that. So I'd say it's a job done. I'll let it cool down a little bit, then I'll take it out of the collet chuck, hit it with the map torch and try and squeeze the tap out of that adapter if I can. And then we'll go to the lathe and try and cut a brass thread, see if it really is a good one, but I'd say it's going to be very, very good. Also the audio bars on my camcorder screen aren't going up anywhere near as far as they used to, so I'd say I might have, I hope, Garble 3 audio for a time. Okay, bring it back when the torch has done its job. Okay guys, it's the old bloke here again, about to have a try to see if this brass tap will cut. I've been saying a few prayers about that, because it'd be most embarrassing if it doesn't. By the way, lubricant. I'm using a 25-year-old tub of Welder's MIG paste. It was made by Faith Chemicals down in Victoria, and the main constituent is coconut oil, which I found out in later days to be an excellent lubricant for brass. Well, bugger me, it seems to be feeding in. Okay, starting to squawk a bit. Sorry if I'm in the way. It's the only way to get out of the way. And I've put that bloody tap handle down. Grab another, he said. This one mightn't work, it's a metric tap wrench, it said M1620. And this isn't going to work either. That sounds like brass. Oh, that's bottomed out. Okay. It appears to have cut a reasonable thread in there. And the only way to know how good it is to send it back to the owner and see if he squeals. Okay guys, thanks a lot for coming along for the ride. It's been about 4.5 or 5 hours total work, and I think about an hour and a bit in video, but at least you get to see a little bit of what's behind the scenes in what we do, making shows for you guys. And it all worked. I'm glad I gave a little bit of an allowance on the tap when I was cutting off. It seems to have cut a slightly wider curve than I expected, and that could be my flanges had a bit of poo under them or something and cocked at the one side. I just wonder where I put that tap handle. Please like and subscribe. Bye for now.